Hey, there's one major mistake I see coaches making again and again and again on their sales calls, and even before they get on them to sell their high ticket coaching programs. I'm going to help you explain why you can do better, how you can get more high ticket and higher quality clients coming into your programs, and how you can do it without having to jump on so many sales calls all the time. Because the fact is that your zone of genius, your expertise is coaching. It's not in sales. So we can spend less time on sales calls, get more clients in the door, and get higher quality clients along the way. Might not make a lot of sense right now, but I'm going to walk you through exactly how it's possible. So if this is the first time joining one of my lives, I'm Brian Czekanski, and I help coaches in particular 10x their high ticket sales without using any sales calls whatsoever. And that might seem like a complete pipe dream, but I'll walk you through in just a second how that's possible. So I want to bring up an example that I use all the time. Anytime I partner up with a new coach, especially in a high ticket coaching program, one of the things that, if it's available is just, can you give me a recording of one of your sales calls just so I can get a sense of how you pitch your program, how people are describing their problems, all those kind of things. So I had a recent coach that I partner up with, and she sent over one of her sales calls. And right away, I knew it was not headed in the right direction. I looked at the time that she spent with them. I think it was 56 or 58 minutes. And I knew right away what was going to happen. Even before I pressed play, I knew what was going to go down. And it was exactly as I thought. She kind of started out exactly how you should in a sales call, getting to know that person. But after some point in time, it was probably 11 or 12 minutes in, she kind of went into coaching mode. So it became less of a sales call and more of a coaching session. And I knew once that happened that the sales call was going to go completely off the rails. And I didn't even have to go to the end of the sales call to figure out like what the response was going to be, because I could see it in the prospect's eyes, kind of like the glazing over of that prospect of like, okay, like this person has kind of just taken over this call. It's less of a conversation and more of this coach is going to, now that they have the information about what my problems are, they're going to start coaching me on, how to do better and how they can get me there faster. So, this is one of the things I see all the time. Again, especially when you start out as a coach, one of the, the early strategies that people tell you is if you want to get more clients consistently, you got to demonstrate your expertise. You want to go out there and coach people for free. And I'm not saying that can't work. It certainly can get your coaching business to a certain level, but at some point you kind of have to let go of that. Your coaching business, especially if it's getting consistent clients, like we need to start, stop the whole coaching for free thing, especially on your sales calls, because that's not the place for it, especially on sales calls where if you think about a sales call, like you think about conversations that you have with people all the time. Do you enjoy talking to people that just talk about themselves or dominate the conversation? Do you enjoy talking to somebody that spends 90% of that conversation talking? You probably don't. You enjoy those conversations, whether you know it or not, in those conversations where you're talking about yourself, where you are kind of speaking a little bit more, or it's more of a back and forth. So that's kind of one of the main problems, that when coaching comes, when you're coaching on a sales call, you're dominating that conversation. You're kind of sharing your expertise, but you're dominating the whole mode of that. And that other person can't get any word in edgewise. They can't even think in their own head of like, okay, is this the right program for me? Because you are just kind of like bulldozing them with your coaching expertise. And again, especially as you get into the high ticket perspective, when somebody's spending 5K, 10K, 20K, 30K, they don't really they don't need you to demonstrate your expertise to them. You've already done some of that pre-selling to get them on the call. It's really just kind of getting in their own mind of like, okay, is this the right person for me? Is this, can he handle my own, or he or she, can she handle kind of my special situation, and kind of handling those objections, handling any questions that they have. But they can't, they can't ask any questions. They can't ask any objections if you're just going through and trying to start the whole coaching process from the very get-go. Like you have to offer them that space to be able to kind of almost think out loud in terms of like, okay, like I would love to get into your coaching, but like here are these key beliefs here, these key questions that I need answered for me to get over the top. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go into long, eloquent answers. You can be really succinct, especially like really knowing, like, for your customers, like, what are those key objections going to be? Usually is around price. So having a key, couple lines around your price and building up the return on investment and the key value there, but also like, can this person help me in my unique and special situation? So really getting an idea of, what are the segments of your list? What are the segments of prospects that you have? And being able to really tie that up with maybe your own story or testimonials of people just like them in the past. If you can bring up examples, if you can bring up specific things in that conversation, that's going to help them get over some of those objections on the other side. But if you just get right into coaching and start to prove to them right away that your coaching works, first of all, there's not enough time for them to get an easy win or to get enough improvement that they're going to see that in the first place. So you're kind of wasting your time. The other thought is, again, like, you don't leave enough time. So they don't have additional space to articulate some of those objections or anything like that as you're going on and on and on with your coaching. So really think about sales call as a conversation, but 95, like the 80/20. So 80% of a sales call should be that prospect talking, giving you information, kind of speaking out loud about what they're going through, what's the intensity of those problems, what is that dream scenario that they want the most, and then really filling in the gaps. Like, as much as possible, you want to get in front of some of those objections, answer them beforehand before they come into mind, but you're not going to get there to 100%. So allowing that person to kind of just that free space and that silence from you to kind of articulate, okay, like, these are the things in my mind that are, getting in between me signing up with you as a coach, and really articulating, okay, like, these are the other things in the market that I'm seeing, and these are the concerns that I have. So giving people the space and the silence and the leadership as part of that conversation to share those things is really important. Whereas if you're being a coach and trying to demonstrate your expertise and trying to have the stance of, I've got so much knowledge and I want to share all this knowledge with you, and hoping that knowledge is enough. Like, if I just overwhelm you with all my knowledge, that you're suddenly going to be like, wow, this person is the right person for me, is just, it doesn't work. Again, it might have gotten your coaching practice to a certain level, but certainly in the high ticket space, it's gonna crush your sales, if anything. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Like, if you talk about a typical salesperson on a high ticket sales call, they typically close at around 25%. That's a pretty good closing rate for a high ticket salesperson. If I talk to most coaches that are selling their high ticket coaching program, they're probably around 10%, or they don't calculate their numbers whatsoever because they're scared to figure out what that number is. It's probably less than 10% as they go through. So they're jumping on sales calls. They're hearing, I can't afford it, it's not the right time for me, all those kind of things, because they're spending a lot of, they're dominating the conversation, number one. There's no end time to that sales call because they're coaching up people along the way, and they're really not allowing their prospect to articulate the objections or those concerns or those questions that they have, because they're not giving enough space. They're not giving that silence that your prospects needs to really think through and kind of articulate, okay, like, what's holding them back from the sales process and getting them over the line. If anything, on a sales call, you don't want to be convincing people of becoming a coaching client. You really want to be qualifying them and give them the space where they can really convince themselves in their own head that you're the right person for them, and knocking down any objections or questions or anything else that might be getting in the way. So again, the next time you jump on a sales call, one of the things I would do is, again, if you're not recording them right now, ask that next prospect, can I record this call, and go back to it? And number one, see what the length is. So if you're spending 45 minutes or an hour or more than an hour on a coaching call, a sales call, you're probably coaching people up a little bit too much. And then think about, like, what's the percentage of the time that I was talking on this call, and take a look at their eyes, take a look at their body reaction as you're coaching them up. You're going to see their eyes kind of glaze over. You're going to see them kind of fall back in the chair. You're going to see them lose interest in that, because again, they're talking less about themselves and what they care about most, and you're just trying to dominate them with coaching along the way, and kind of dominate with your knowledge along the way. So keep that in mind next time you're on your sales call, and think about, again, outsourcing some of those sales to somebody like me that has, does this on an everyday basis, and again, allows you to kind of open up your calendar to do more of that coaching and less of these sales calls where you don't really enjoy being on these sales calls altogether. Allow me to deliver high ticket coaching clients to you on a silver platter. I don't jump on any sales calls. I am able to close people just through one-to-one email sales conversations and DMs. Happy to have a conversation to see if it's a fit for you, but I would encourage you, stop coaching on sales calls going forward.